Just when America has reached a breaking point with division, visionary influencer Danny Benson's I'm Proud of You Sis Bro movement taps into the pulse and heartbeat of a culture radically torn. But this loving mom's voice of reason and calm has received national recognition.
How do you balance having your children and always traveling with the Yankee organization?
When I became a dad, I said that I would always love like a mother.
I feel like I have to try certain things or act a different way because I know some people or some kids.
So join Danny Benson as she celebrates her special guests on her show and highlights their gifts and contributions to our world.
Hi! Hi, everyone. My name is Danny Benson. My show, I'm Proud of You, Sis. I'm the host. I hope everyone's having a great week. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy you're joining me. Please like, share, follow, comment. If you have someone who you're very proud of, it can be a sis or a bro, please reach out to me. I would love to put them on the show and give them their flowers or their cigars. But today I have a special guest. Her name is Kemi Omiosi. I said it right? Omiosi? Yes, she's a special guest because we have talked on the phone and we have like-minded backgrounds about, you having a purpose or you having a dream, and you tell your family, even when you're young, and your family has this thing that because they're protective of you and they want to make sure that you're going to be able to make money to sustain your lifestyle. Usually it's like the Wheel of Fortune, the AEIOU, like it's a given. It's like either be a lawyer, doctor, nurse, engineer, those type of jobs that most parents want you to do because they know that, first of all, there's a need for it out there, and second of all, it's guaranteed to make sure it covers your lifestyle. But what happens if you don't want to fall into those categories that every parent probably wants their kids to do because they want to make sure they have financial security, and your heart is like saying something else. Like my heart said something else. My family are majority in the medical profession, and I congratulate them because I know that's a hard feast. That's a lot of studying, a lot of years of dedication and education to get to where they're at. But I'm a free spirit and I don't like blood. So my whole thing was like, okay, I got to follow my heart. I got to follow what my gut is telling me. I got to do my purpose. So that's why I have Kemi on the show, because for anyone out there who feel that, their parents are not supporting them, their family is not supporting them, not supporting them like they don't love you, but not understanding your purpose or what you feel that you should be pursuing, this is a show for you. And I think that we all have our purpose. So that's why I have Kemi on the show. We're going to be talking about purpose, humility, and hard work. Welcome, Kemi, to the show.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. I'm great.
Okay, so tell the audience your background so they can have a frame of reference as to the importance of what you're going to be when you grow up.
Okay. So my family is Nigerian and I'm first generation. I guess I want to say I still feel Nigerian, but I was the firstborn. I'm a first generation American, but I still feel Nigerian in terms of I grew up in a very Nigerian household, and my siblings and I referred to it as Little Nigeria.
That's the same thing with me. My parents are Haitian, and I am the firstborn here in America. So I still consider myself Haitian American because as soon as you walk into my house, I'm speaking French. And the food is French and everything in the house is French. And as soon as I walk out, it becomes, I'm speaking American again. Yeah. And it's so weird because my kids are learning the language because I want them to know it, because I want them to have still have a part of where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so now they're learning I speak Creole. I don't know what Nigerians speak, because I know you have your own language too.
Well, there's more than 250,000 different languages and dialects, but my parents are from the two main ethnic groups, or two of the main. My mom is Igbo, my dad is Yoruba. So they speak two different languages. However, with my siblings and I, they did not teach us because they felt like it was too hard, because they were coming from two different cultures, and then melding their cultures together was, as it was, hard enough. And the time when they got together, it was still considered taboo for an Igbo for an Igbo person and Yoruba person to get together because of the Biafra War. So yeah, so one group is trying to get rid of the other. So
wow.
So them getting together at that time was considered very like, you know, everyone's like, oh my God, why would you do that? That's so horrible. Or don't do that. Or, you know, that's not what you do.
It's like basically like interracial relationships in America. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like a Black person, a white person marrying. And it's like, yes. Back then, back then, I think it was frowned upon in America for interracial relationship. Now it's, you know, common. You see it all over the place. But I remember back then, they actually had to have a Supreme Court amendment saying it's okay to have interracial marriage. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. But my parents, them being together was it was considered it was just forbidden. Not really forbidden. It was just, everyone was just like, why would you do that? Or like, you know, it wasn't welcomed culturally.
But it's changed now, right?
It is changing now. Now you're starting to see more Igbo and Yoruba people getting together. It's like my younger brother, he married an Igbo girl. My cousin, she married a Yoruba guy. So, you know, and then like you're starting to see it within Nigeria as well, where people are starting to become more accepting and okay with that.
Well, so is it changing also the expectations of what parents want their kids to become?
Absolutely not. That part has not changed. For me, I remember going to college, and my mom was like, you're going to be a nurse. And as a child, I always wanted to be a designer. I always loved clothing, and I would do things where like my mom would consider me destructive, and I would say now I was creative, because I would cut up things like I would find in the house, like sheets, comforters, whatever I would find, and make clothes for my Barbies. And looking back, I'm just like, golly, I feel so bad for her, because, you know, she would go get something nice out, and then there'd be like a part cut off, and I'd be like, oh, what happened? I made something for my Barbie. And she would be like, that was my $100 comforter. Like, what did you do? And so for me, always something I wanted to do was fashion. But she was like, no, you have to be a nurse, period. You're going to be the nurse.
So, okay. So, you know what's so amazing about that? Because I think a lot of kids know their purpose. Like, instead of you telling your kid what they should be, you should watch what they like and what they don't like. Most kids kind of know what they want to do, but sometimes they get pushed to doing something that they don't want to do based on survival mode.
Yeah, I totally agree. For them, it was survival mode in terms of if you are, you know, the top 5 engineer, doctor, lawyer, you know, those top 5. I'm sorry if I forgot some of the top 5, but if you are one of those majors, you're able to support yourself and your family, because a lot of times you're not just supporting yourself, you're supporting the family back home as well. So it's not about you. So you need to have a strong major so that, you know, you can take care of yourself and then the family back home. So your money is not just yours, it's for the family.
Yes, because you're supporting your home, and then you're supporting family members outside of your home.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy? That's like so much pressure.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
It is a lot. So then what happened? Like, what made you, did you become a nurse? Did you go to school for nursing? Like, when you were going to high school, did you major like in biology? Like, how'd you kind of pivot?
For me, my start was, my story is basically in high school. I studied abroad, and I went to Italy, and I learned Italian. And if you ask my mother, she'll say I lost all my math and science skills, because when I was in Italy, I went to an art school. And so, going to an art school that was so not what she had wanted or planned, or it just wasn't in the cards. And so with coming back to the US, I came back my senior year, and I felt like I had changed so much in terms of, having lived in Italy away from my family and friends so much. Coming back to the US, I was bored, and I felt like, the creative part of me was alive and well. And so when I went to college, she was like, "You're doing nursing." And because I had lived in Italy and I was fluent in Italian, could read it and write it, I skipped like the beginner Italian, and then I became an Italian major. But
can you say something in Italian? Because I think that's so cool. Can you say something?
Sono andata in Italia la settimana scorsa, però sono andata a Bolzano per trovare la mia mamma italiana.
What did you just say?
I said last week I went to Italy, to Bolzano, and I went to see my Italian mom last week.
Oh my God. Is that the Italian mom from when you did the exchange program?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You guys are still in touch?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is super. Oh, wow. That's super amazing. I know she's so proud of like when she first met you and what you have become now.
Yeah, there's actually, when I first met her, we were both crying, and like the TV station was there recording, and she was like, she has 3 sons, and then she's like, this is my daughter, and everyone's like, yeah, but she's Black. And she's like, she's my daughter, she's mine.
Oh, you know what? This is what I love. This is what I love about the human race, because love is connected from the inside and not how you look on the outside. So when it's pure love, wow. The fact that you guys still have a relationship all these years later. You know what? Did your mom ever meet her?
No, my mom hasn't met her yet, but the way I talk to my Italian mom, I feel like she knows everything about me. I feel like I tell her everything. Like, yeah. She's like,
more than your mom?
Yeah. And I still get yelled at by her, and she's like, "No, Kevin, you don't do that. That's, this is in Italian," but she'll still like yell at me and stuff like that. But like I still have like deep conversations with her, and just like I tell her everything, and just say about my siblings, my family, and just like, just everything that's going on in my life.
Well, that is amazing. So I obviously, after coming to this exchange program, your life, kind of changed forever. Because you saw something different than you normally would see every single day.
It did, especially because no one spoke English where I was. The family didn't speak English, so it was one of those things where even the kids at the school were like, "Yeah, we want to talk to you, but we don't speak English." So for me, I just like, it was like complete immersion into the Italian lifestyle and just into the language. But how that changed me in terms of college is like, I had already been on my own. And so with my family wanting me to study nursing, I started taking nursing courses in terms of the prerequisite courses, the science courses. And I was like, I'm not strong, and my grades were bad, to be honest. And so I tried to get into fashion school to get into the fashion major, but there was just so much stuff that was keeping me from getting into that college. So I was just like, all right, you know what? I'll just focus on Italian. And so I graduated with a degree in a Bachelor of Arts in Italian. And then how I ended up in New York is after college, I had moved back home to Cincinnati, Ohio with my parents. I was depressed. I was miserable. And so my mom was like, listen, if you want to go to New York, you got to figure out how you're going to get there. You have to figure out a job, something, a reason for you to get there, or like an internship, something. And once you get there, I'll help you find a place to stay. And then I'll help you like your first few months. And so I found an internship at a magazine. And this is kind of where like my fashion journey, this is actually where my fashion journey begins, is I interned at Self magazine, and my internship was 3 days a week. And so how this plays into working hard is, I remember my sister saying to me like, "Oh, if you want them to hire you, have to go in and work 5 days a week." And I was like, 5 days a week? What? I need 2 days to rest and do my laundry, and 5 days, like, what do you mean? And so needless to say, I wasn't hired, but I did get the opportunity, some pretty cool opportunities, and I did get the opportunity to become a sitting assistant for the magazine for like 1 or 2 shoots, which was pretty cool. But what that taught me was, when I was working in the fashion closet of Self magazine, was you have to know where everything is in terms of when you send samples back, you need to know who received it. Mm-hmm. And like when you take trunks down for photo shoots, you have to make sure it gets into someone's hands. Because I remember at that time when I interned, it was before. Now the law is for, if you intern, you have to get some type of college credit. When I started,
I did it, it was no college credit. I was doing it for free.
Yeah, I was doing it. Yeah, and and so was I. And I was doing it for free. I lived in Long Island with some long lost, like, I don't know if it's like this in your culture, but with some cousins where they're not really related.
Yeah, that's how
your auntie knows this person or that person, or somebody knows that.
That's how we did it. It's like a family, and it's not only blood. It's like family. Like, we know each other. We're from the same place, and we help each other out. Yeah. Because that's what you have to do sometimes, especially when you're interning for free. You're not getting paid.
No, and so I stayed with family. But the problem was with staying with family is they had young children. And so I was 21, and I'm 21 in New York, and they lived in Long Island, and I was trying to, be fabulous. And they were like, nah, you can't now. Go on now, get. So
no, I get it, because I remember that era, because when I was 21 years old, the city was popping.
It was.
And it was popping. It was fun. Everybody was talking to each other, mingling. Oh, it was a time to be alive in New York City. It was an amazing time. It was an amazing time.
It was. And when they asked me to leave after I had like messed up, and they're like, all right, I remember like my first New York apartment, it was in Jamaica, Queens. And like across the street was like, it was a drug rehab center. And then like around the corner was the projects. And I remember being like, oh my God, it's fun. And then I remember like the apartment was overrun with rats. And so
it's still a problem. I'm hearing it's still a problem.
Yeah.
City rats.
It is. And just like that apartment, it was so, yeah. So that was my
You know what? That apartment humbled you, because I think we all had, I can't say all, but I'm happy you had that apartment, because you know that you wanted to work harder so you can get out of that apartment. Because that is the point of the point. There's 2 lessons you learn in life. Either you accept where you are and you hate it and you complain about it, or you work harder to just get out of it to put yourself in a better situation.
Yeah.
So that was a godsend to you, honestly, because if you still lived at home with your family, you might have like not had the experience of something that I want versus something that I don't want.
And I don't think I would have strived as hard. And then also for me, it was, my parents were always like, if you can't make it, you can come home. You can always come home. And I'd be like, I'm not going home. I'm not going home. I'm going to do everything I can to stay here. And so I got a job as a admissions advisor for the Talented and Gifted program. And so that was very interesting to see how the New York City education system worked.
Was that interesting? Is that interesting to see? It is to me.
That aspect was interesting because it was the Talented and Gifted. And so you saw like, what does it take to get into these Talented and Gifted schools, how they test the kids, from the preschoolers, how they take the Stanford Binet test with the psychologist. And then there's, they have their observed playing to see how they react in different situations. And then it was interesting to see how they would have to make sure the kids were from a specific borough. Like if you're from Manhattan, you have to be from Manhattan to go to the school, and how, it would be interesting to see like, how are parents trying to,
navigate that Manhattan thing.
Yes.
Parents are still doing this today. Like, I feel like it's so sad how education, well, one of my cousins is a principal. She was that education was equal. Mm-hmm. Meaning that every zip code got the same quality education as the next zip, like quality wise, because there's some zip codes or some areas their education is subpar versus like other areas. So it's not education is not equal, but I don't know. Do you agree with me? Because she's a principal, so she feels like education.
You know what I think how education differs is because in New York, you don't, in like we're apartment dwellers, so you technically don't have a stake in education. However, but if you're a homeowner, I feel like there's a stake in it, so you're more invested in your school system.
I live in Long Island, and you are exactly correct. Like where I live, it's a great school district. Everybody knows my name. I am invested in my children. I don't care how much taxes I have to pay because I'm paying steep taxes. I take it as for my babies. But you know what? Education is so important to me because our parents made it important to us growing up.
And that's one of the things my father always said. He's always said, or his father said to him, and my dad said this to us, I may not be wealthy, but what I do have to give you is an education. So he's like, so with giving you this education, build your wealth on this education. And with having an education or just having a degree, he was like, that opens doors for you, doors that would never have been opened for you. And I know we may be like, oh, I have student loans, I cry about it. But some people are like, but I believe it's an investment in yourself, in you. And having that degree opens doors in different arenas or, you know, puts you in different spaces that if you didn't have that experience or that degree, sometimes you wouldn't be able to get into that arena or those spaces. And so
that's why I tell my kids, like, they don't really get it. They're in 4th grade. They think school is boring. But I'm constantly, I mean, our parents were lucky we didn't have to compete against social media.
No,
but I'm constantly like, I have the app, I control it on my phone. So it's a constant like, nope, because they can request. I'm like, nope. You got to read first. You got to read an hour a day. It's so hard because not every kid is, my kids are second generation.
Yes.
So, so it's harder than when we first came because we understood it more from our parents, the importance of education. And now I feel like my kids don't really get it because I feel like it's up to me.
They didn't have to go through the same struggle or watch your parents struggle. And so, so I totally get that. But how, like with you saying social media, how that pertains to like what I do now, a lot of people are like, oh, your life, it seems so glamorous, or what you do is so glamorous. And I'm like, you don't know, for me to go from the past to get here, like it wasn't glamorous. Like I used to work in a bar. I had a cleaning company where I would clean, where I would clean for a living. I would clean people's homes. I would clean offices. So this is like, all the things I was doing to get to where I am now, where it wasn't, it wasn't glamorous. And it was one of those things where it's like, even now people might be like, oh, but you get to be around celebrities and, you do this and you meet celebrities and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I do. But in order to do this work, it's very humbling in terms of you have very little time to get it right, what you're doing. And then you really have to work quickly. And also keep in mind, you're in these people's intimate spaces. You're in their homes. You're like touching their bodies. And so a lot of times I always ask them, is it okay if I touch you? Because I always feel like they may not have control of like, people touching them because, when you're constantly being dressed or people don't always ask you, do you mind if I touch you? Are you okay? Is it okay if I stand this close to you? May I touch you? Is it, So I always like to make sure like they're comfortable.
No, that's a good thing because you should always ask, your body is like your personal space. And you should always ask people, is it okay for me to do this? Because now you are invading a space that is very like a vulnerable, space. So I commend you for having that empathy to ask because you shouldn't assume, you should
always feel comfortable. And sometimes they may not like what they have on. And so my question is, okay, so if I did this to it, would that make you like it more? Would you feel comfortable? Because they don't always have control of what they're going to wear or what they have to wear. So I always like to make sure, like, is there, of the options that you have, is there something else I could do to take it in or make it better or add, or, is there something I could do to make it better? Because,
and you know what? Let me just tell you something. The whole social media thing, it sometimes social media makes things look easy, and it's not easy at all. Like, people don't understand the grind. See, we don't really put the grind on social media, and that's why people think like everything looks so glamorous. Everyone wants to put like the most glamorous shot, the most glamorous, like, thing, but they don't understand like the sweat that goes behind,
And tears.
and tears and pain and crying and rejection and
Yeah.
all of those things that human emotions feel. They just look at that moment and say, hey, you have a great life, and it's not easy.
You're able to do this, or wow, you met this person, or you're traveling with this person. And it's like, yeah, but to get here, do you know what I had to do? Do you know how much? Do you know I cried? Do you know why I was sewing that outfit? I was crying. I was crying because I was scared, or like I didn't know how it would look, or it's like you literally, some of the stuff you literally have 15 minutes to make it pretty and put it on the person, and they go on a red carpet. And so sometimes you can be your own worst critic. And a lot of times, sometimes I do feel like I am my own worst critic, where I'll look at something and be like, oh, I did bad. But the artist won't know. They'll be like, oh, it looks amazing. And I'll be like,
yeah, but you know your work. They don't know because they're not an expertise of what you do, but you are your worst critic. Because you will notice like everything. And that's what anybody who is a specialty in anything that they do. The layman person who's not specialized just thinks it's fine, but you can tell and see the errors of things that you've done. So I completely understand. But so tell me, okay, so how did you, you went to you did the fashion thing. So how did you become this celebrity seamstress? Because we jumped a little bit. So how did you become that? Because all right, so we checked off no nursing. So
I didn't do that.
You did the you majored in Italian, but then you started working in the school system. You were talking about the school, the gifted.
And then I was also I worked for a nonprofit again back after I went back into working in the school in New York City public schools, working with kids getting their GEDs. And so that was, an interesting space to work, because those kids there, they'd never been to high school for different reasons. And my job was to figure out like why, they didn't go to high school. How can I make it possible for them to get their GEDs? And to me, a lot of the kids were great, but their stories were so like, their lives were so intense.
Traumatic, a lot of trauma.
There was a lot of trauma. And so I felt like for me, I got burnt out after 2 years of doing that. And then also while I was there, like I would watch some of the kids, they had internships and they were like, they had fashion internships, and I'd be like, I want to do fashion. And so when I left that school, I actually got one of the other counselors that I was working with, my coworker, had a connect and was like, oh, I can help you get an internship somewhere else, like, for the summer, because I was on, I would have the summers off. And so that summer I got an internship, and I never went back to the schools. And from that internship, what I had learned at the second internship, which I didn't learn at the first internship, was is to be there. You want to make yourself indispensable. You want to make sure that you're always there, and that when they look around, they're like, oh, she's still here. You're first person in, you're last one to leave, and that, you're hardworking and you know what you're doing. And so
that's what your sister was trying to tell you.
And that's what she was trying to tell me.
It's not the 3 days, it's 5 days. And that's what I'm trying to like make kids understand, that you're more memorable when you work really hard. You got to go above and beyond. And a lot of kids don't understand like this free thing. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's free, but you're getting the relationships and you're getting the experience.
Really,
this is what
experience, yeah.
It's worth any amount of money that you can get. I honestly feel is interning, because you're learning what you love. Of course, you're not getting paid, but you're meeting so many important people in the room, and your net worth is your net work.
That's true.
So that's what happened with you.
And I got hired because I remember I had went with my friend to, like, she was an intern and she invited me to some music conference. And then when I was there, my internship, the company owner of the internship was like, where are you? We need you. Like, what do I have to do to get you?
Kemi, hold that thought. We're going to go to a commercial break. Optimum viewers, thank you for watching. I'm proud of you, sis. My live viewers, we will be right back speaking to Kemi. Hi, and we're back, everyone. We're talking to Kemi about humility and hard work. And we were just talking about how important it is to ensure how important internships are. And when you do have an internship, you have to bust your butt. You can't just go there and just lay back, because you're not going to be noticed and you're not going to go far doing that. So Kemi was just explaining her experience as being an intern and why that was important in her path to her purpose. So yes, let's continue.
So I interned and they eventually hired me. And so it was, to me, I was like, it was amazing. However, they fired me.
You know what? Okay, it's okay. It's okay.
It was, but how I looked at it as experience, even with getting fired or just being in that internship, was I worked really hard to even get hired. And so for me, how I looked at it as it was school. So it's like, okay, so you've learned different skills. And looking back, I'm like, okay, why did you get fired? So I look back, because I refused to learn Excel at that time. I didn't know how to do Excel and I refused. And that was, they used Google Sheets and Excel and I refused. And so that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I got fired because of that. I should have studied that. I should have been like, you know what, let me learn this. But so I got fired. And then after that, I started working. And that's when I was like working after that job. I felt like I was traumatized. So I was working at a bar. And then I decided at that time, I was like, you know what, let me learn to sew. I really want to learn to sew. And I also was like, I want to learn to sew. And so I started learning to sew and it was so interesting. And then I noticed like I would ask my teacher all these questions and she wouldn't have answers for me. And I was like, okay, I need answers. So then for me, then I started to like, to learn on my own, to study, like buy books and read. And I think like even look at YouTube videos and things like that. And then I noticed she was a technical designer and I was like, what's a technical designer do? What do they do? And so from her, I begged her to teach me. And so she's like, I offer a course. So I took her course and I learned technical design. And then she was like, I can help you get your first job or set up your portfolio or learn enough so you can get a job or get an entry level position. So basically a technical designer they're in the back of the house with manufacturing. They decide how garments should fit. Like what if a designer draws something, it's a tech designer that says this is how it should fit. And this is how the factory is going to make it. And it's going to be these measurements. And it's the tech designer that says, yes or no, this sample looks good. Go ahead and go on to production or let's manufacture the garment. So with that position, like it was a lot of responsibility because if it didn't sell, everyone looks at you like, oh, your fit didn't work. So I couldn't really find a job as a tech designer after I had finished her courses, and I was working at the bar again and I was cleaning while I was working at a bar. And then a few months back after I had started learning to sew, I started like sewing clothes and I did a fashion show. And then I met this amazing girl who was a tech designer and she was like, you know what? let me help you interview and help you like set up your portfolio. And I was like, what?
Really?
Oh. So like later on, like she helped me get my first job. And she's like, I know somebody who's hiring. You can be a consultant and a tech designer. And so again, it goes into where I was a consultant in terms of helping like people, if they wanted to do a luxury brand, I would consult them in starting their brand and create their, do the technical aspects of it. And I was also like, sometimes at that time I would be a fit model. So from consulting, I got another tech design job, and then the pandemic happened. And then during the pandemic, I was still sewing, like, I was making masks, I was sewing things. And then one of my friends who's a jewelry designer, she gave me a pair of pants. And I was like, oh, these pants are hideous. And I was like, they look cute. So I turned the pants into into a dress. And so then I showed her like, hey, I turned these pants into a dress, and I sent her a picture of it. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. And then she showed one of her friends who's a celebrity stylist. And then her friend was like, I have an awards show and I need a tailor. Is she available? Is she available? And this was like at midnight. So they called me on a group call, and I was like, yeah, I can be there. And so fast forward, I'm like, my first celebrity tailoring job was with Sha'Carri Richardson. And so it was for the ESPY Awards. And I remember the initial stylist was like, you don't have to be in the room. But because I was like, no, I need to see how the clothes fit her. And so that's where my technical design background and like learning to make patterns came in handy. Like a culmination of all these skills that I had gotten from years before, even like from being a waitress and, you know, working as a, you know, as a technical designer in production and manufacturing, where it's like everything is a culmination. And so it's like, even though I may have been fired from previous jobs, I always looked at it as you're in school.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and you know why it's good that you say you're in school? Because failure is actually, you have to fail to learn and to grow.
And it's perspective, where some people are like, oh my God, I lost my job. And it's like, okay, so you lost your job. What is it you could do better? Like, what is it like? I didn't have hate or anger at the, you know, for getting fired. I wasn't mad. Some of the jobs I was happy. It came to a point where I would always have a purse packed. I wouldn't get comfy at jobs because I was like, I don't know, I might get fired. But it all led up to me doing this. And honestly, I mean, at some point my parents were like, you know, they stopped worrying about me. We're like, you know, we know if you need something, you'll call us or you'll come home. But at this point, we wanted you to be a nurse. You know, this field that you're doing, we know nothing about it. It's scary for us because, you know, you don't know when you'll get paid, or you're sitting there, you know, when you work a corporate job, you get a check every 2 weeks. And so what you're doing, like, they're like, it's scary for us. We don't know anybody who does what you do. And so we can't guide you or tell you who to talk to because it's just you. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so it's like a lot of times with family members are like, oh, so you just, you know, you just sit and you just sew clothes. And I'm like, no.
They don't get it.
I'm like, they're like, oh my God, that's what you do. Or like, oh my goodness, like that's what you're doing.
But that's why it's good. You know, when people who have a family, that's why it's good to expand outside of the family and learn new things, because your family just knows things based on their experience, right? So they limit you sometimes. And because they have this fear factor of they want their baby to succeed, that's why they want you to do the jobs that they personally know, because their friends know or friends know. But it's good to intern. It's good to do exchange programs. It's good to maybe go away from home. It's good to do all those things because you're meeting different people that's showing you different sides of like life that you've never really would have an opportunity if you just stayed right there in that bubble.
That's true.
And that's why, like, I want to tell you, I'm so proud of you, sis.
Thank you.
Because it takes a lot of risk to go to a country that you don't know.
Don't speak the language.
Speak the language. And I love the way that you speak Italian. I think it's so amazing. You remind me of, rest in peace, Kobe. When Kobe used to speak Italian and he used to go to Italy a lot. It's amazing how you just picked up the language. I know it was probably hard.
It was.
You did it. You still maintained it. So many life lessons that you've learned that has actually built your character. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree.
Yeah, especially the Excel sheet. You know what I got from the Excel sheet?
What?
I think you learned, like, I think the lesson that you learned from the Excel sheet, that's why it wasn't a failure. Next time someone presents you an opportunity, even if you don't really know it, dive in and get to know what it is.
But I feel like a lot of it was fear. I was scared. So a lot of times it's moving through the fear. And a lot of times as humans, we get scared where we freeze up and we're like, I'm not going to do it because I'm so scared. And so a lot of times I always tell people, like, no matter how scared you are, still make a move, because even the smallest move, even just opening up the program or like buying a book and flipping through it, that's like, you know, you're still moving through the fear and you're building momentum. You're creating movement versus just standing still where you're doing nothing and you're expecting something to happen, but nothing's going to happen if you're not doing anything.
No. And by the way, she lives in Brooklyn, so you will hear sirens like that all the time. Welcome to Brooklyn. Welcome to New York City, where it's loud and it never goes to sleep. But you are right, though. I think, because I have fear too, and I constantly have to like talk to myself and say it's in my imagination. Just take a step. I think fear is, once you take that jump, it wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
No, but also it comes with a lot of times with being with even like, I know like I make mistakes or things don't always go right, but a lot of times with even being scared about the outcome of things, it goes back to, I always tell one of my friends, like, you have to have grace, or just, you know, just self-love or be gentle with yourself in terms of when you mess up or something's not going wrong or when you're scared, you still, it's that conversation you have with yourself where you take a deep breath and say, I can do this, or what's the worst that can happen? If I mess up, they'll get mad, but what happens if I do a good job? And you're like, nothing.
Then look at all the rewards you get. And what happens, even if you don't do a good job, it's just you learning something.
You did it. You did it.
You did
and
it.
That's I'm like, you did it. You did something, like you did it. So it's like even just the smallest thing, I'm like, still pat yourself on the back. And a lot of times I always feel like as humans, we're so hard, we're so negative. We're like, oh, I didn't do it. I did a bad job. But, it's just having grace and compassion and just being like, you know what? I did it. I did something. I did it. And
Amen.
I'm with even that small thing where I bought the book or I learned Excel or, I played with it or I asked somebody, I let somebody know I need help. And sometimes the biggest thing is like, we'll be scared to ask somebody to help us.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like even asking someone to teach me to sew because I felt like I always wanted to learn to sew. And so me finding a course and like, asking my parents, can they help me? Or, interning and asking for help, like, asking somebody like, can you show me how to use the Excel program? Or like, what do I need to do to become a better intern? And the first question is more than 3 days, stay the whole 5 days.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to anyone who, has a purpose, like, and is going into water that they've never, conquered before, especially the kids these days, what advice?
What I would always tell them to do is ask questions. That, and I always tell kids, I always tell them to write things down. Like one of the things I noticed that a lot of interns or young people don't do is write things down. And I always feel like when you go into these situations, you don't write things down, but then there's always this assumption that you just, everything happened overnight or was a microwave. And a lot of times I tell them it takes work. It takes a lot of work to get where you are, and don't be afraid to work hard. Like even when I say even work hard, I've heard people, CEOs say when they have interns, they'll have interns that think they're too good to take the trash out or wash the dishes. And then the CEO will be like, they notice things like that, even the littlest things, they notice. So it's like, don't be afraid to work hard.
So, okay. So you dealt with people that didn't go to high school and were trying to obtain their GED. Mm-hmm. And with the trauma they suffered, what would you tell those kids? Because sometimes circumstances happen where it's not, you don't understand why, because remember, you're young. You don't even know how important it is to go to high school or whatever the reason is. What hope do you give them?
I'm still actually in contact with a lot of my kids from that time period. And so some of them did end up going to college and some did finish high school and some are just living. And so for them, it was enough just to survive the next day or just to live. But one of the things that I always told them was to ask questions, to be curious, and to, I always tell them, and also one of the things I always told them is to get out of your environment. Because I always felt like if you stay in your environment, you don't see anything else. You're not exposed to anything else. And so I would always say, get out of your environment, because then that gives you new ideas and you see how other people are living. And you see that your life, you don't have to stay where you are. Your life doesn't have to be like this. And we all have choices. And a lot of times it's the little choices we make that have the biggest impacts versus the big choices we make. So
no, you are so right. Like I try to, even with my kids, like one of my daughters, she said like a wrong answer in the classroom and she came home and she said that she felt dumb. And I said, no, you're not dumb, because how you learn is to like answer the question. And if you don't know the answer, then they tell you how to do it. So next time when you do it again, you'll probably answer the question right. But you got to take chances. You got to raise your hand. You got to participate. You can't have the fear of answering the question wrong, because we're all humans. We're not perfect. Mm-hmm. But in you raising your hand all the time, that's how you start building your confidence.
Yeah. And it's also practice. And a lot of times you practice it. You practice.
So do you believe that? So when Island Allen Iverson said, "I don't believe in practice." Did you believe in that? Like, because he thought he was so great that he didn't believe in practice. Do you go with that?
No, I believe in practice. It's like, I believe, what did Jay-Z used to say? It takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, or to become good at something, or like whatever you put your heart to. And
10,000 hours?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many years is that?
I don't know, but I think I think I've gotten my 10,000, I'm getting my 10,000 hours, but I'm still always down to learn and open to learning. And so that's one of the things I always tell people, is always be open to learning.
Always. And don't ever have like a closed mind where someone is trying to maybe teach you something, whether you agree with it or not, you still have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because that helps you also too to get different perspectives. That helps you in your growth. Also, to have an open mind, to be open-minded, helps you also. But I want to thank Kemi for coming on the show. You dropped so many gems. And for anyone out there who is pursuing their purpose and maybe they feel like their parents don't support them, it's okay. You know, you just have to talk to your parents. Try your best to show them why this is important to you, right? And even if they don't listen, let's see how life dives and dives, to get you to your purpose. Because I always feel like if you listen to your heart and listen to your gut,
it'll work.
That's your map. You will eventually get to your purpose, just like Kemi did. But I want to say thank you so much for joining. I'm proud of you, sis. Hopefully everyone have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.